Now, I've covered a few things this Halloween season, but it's hard to really count them as horror. But this year, I want to talk about a piece of horror media that means a lot to me. And that's Bendy and the Ink Machine, the one true horror game that I actually got into. Now, I really don't like how Bendy feels to be blamed for the Mascot Horror negativity going on. You know, the whole thing of cute kitty thing turned horrifying and disturbing with easily marketable monsters started by FNAF. It really became a problem during the release of Poppy's Playtime, and Ban seriously drove the nail in that coffin. But it seriously bugs me how FNAF seems to be exempt from all criticism because it was the first and most popular. Like, we just pretend that it also didn't have the problems these games are known for, like overreliance on jump scares, annoying repetitive gameplay loop, confusing and arbitrary lore, and overabundance of sequels, spin-off, and marketing where it frankly just doesn't die. I feel like when a FNAF game is bad or unpolished, it's just brushed aside like, haha, that's our FNAF, it's okay. But if another game has some of those elements and it's blasted to hell, that's really unfair, especially that Bendy gets virtually all the blame because it was the second big Mascot Horror game. Sorry if it sounds like I'm really targeting them, but I've had very bad personal experiences with FNAF fans in the past who especially treat this game like a sin against nature and feel like a big driving part to why it's gotten such a bad modern reputation. And you know what? I'm sticking up for this game. I think it has a ton of really great elements and is one of the most unique and inspiring Mascot Horror games that doesn't deserve much of the criticism it gets. It's incredibly atmospheric, creative, beautiful, and engaging, and it's really one of the horror games that I've legitimately gotten into and has impacted me. Like, this game was one of the earliest fandoms I was engaged in, and was some of my earliest dives into being an online artist, ironic considering the entire nature of the game. Just don't look up that old art, that's horror in its own regard. So I'm going to get into why I love Bendy and the Ink Machine. It's a departure from my usual animation analysis, but hey, it's a game about animation, so close enough. So the game has kind of a complicated history. Released in February 2017, I swear it felt earlier, on Game Jolt at first, by the Meatly and Mike Mood. And it's actually a really fascinating growth through the game's development. A free Game Jolt game prior to the test concept evolved to be one of the biggest indie horror games ever. You can feel that growth in the game as later chapters became much more intricate and developed when the team got big or could add more. It adds a layer when you can really feel how the game evolves by itself, but I also went back to older chapters to give new details and additions, making it unified. It's a nice touch. Like, you see them trying with at first as environments and basic controls, then to combat and more mall interactions, to expansive maps and character AIs, to bosses and mechanics, like seeing a project progress in real time. It's also kind of fun to go back to older versions of the game, even if you gotta play them separate, just to really appreciate how much things change until later. But we gotta get back to Bendy and the Ink Machine, starting with the chapter that started it all, moving pictures. We started with Henry, last name presumably Stickman. Well, it's actually Stein, very fitting. Getting a message from his old pal Joey Drew, another great pun, saying it's been 30 years since they drew together, and he has something to show in the old studio. And we open up to see, yeah, the game's biggest draw right away, the art style. Good lord, this is beautiful. This hand-drawn sketch aesthetic is so damn good, I can't get enough of it. Everything is textured this way, the walls, the objects, even the proportions perfectly match the exaggerated blocky style of old cartoons and pencil sketches. The details and the textures, how they're shaped and placed, I can't get enough of it. It's freaking fantastic. This is the thing that really gets people to notice and love the game, because I really haven't seen anything else try to get this type of aesthetic down a 3D map, and especially this good. The Meatly said they got the idea for the game after warning what it's like to step through a sketch, and this game really feels like it. Like, this game is the closest it is to immersively exploring an actual cartoon as it can get until that one cartoon mouse shooter game that's coming soon. Really looking forward to that. And, well, not counting Cuphead, but you're more playing through a cartoon rather than going through an expansive world, not to discredit it. It's not even just that, but the color use and lighting is phenomenal. They do so much with the limited color palette here, simultaneously making the environment so warm and yet cold at the same time. The yellow and black work super well in that regard, to make it so atmospheric and beautiful with a lot of variation and use of lighting and shadow, working with the contrast of bright and black. It's fantastic. Like, seriously, the game looks so damn gorgeous in places. I've seen people complain that it's not authentic and should be black and white because people now actually have good complaints. First of all, it's imitating old worn out projector reels as if the drawing technology were super old and worn out, fitting the sketchy rundown style. And two, yeah, let's just lose all of what I said about atmosphere and color theory to make it look much less interesting and immersive. Isn't this so much better? Who needs things like being aesthetically pleasing? This look is what gives Bendy its identity and separates it from every other horror game and frankly just game. There hasn't been another game like this, and it makes Bendy stick out and be memorable in this regard compared to a lot of other horror games, especially Mascot Horror games, that blend together by the similar aesthetic and design. This is what truly makes the game unique and alive, and it's one of the biggest reasons I love it and it appeals to me. But back to Endy and the Bink Machine. We get used to our gameplay attributes, standard horror stuff, and bring out the titular ink machine in a really cinematic scene I love with the build-up and especially the violin music. Oh, it's so good. I love the design of it too. It's simultaneously industrial yet cartoony and especially mysterious. But we gotta start the machine by finding stuff to put on the pedestals in the nearby room. So it leads to a lot of exploration of the relatively small area, which is largely just the introduction to the world and get a mood for the game. And I do love it too. Not only because the aesthetic is so immersive, but that also has such an uneasy ambience. I feel this game is very good at unsettling you through its atmosphere and not by just jump scares, especially this chapter. There's only one big scare and I know it, but it's just a feeling of unease I feel the aesthetic brings. And that's one of the reasons why this game was made as horror. If you remember, I said the Melee made the game to explore what being in a sketch would be like, and when experimenting, they found it was really uncanny and creepy and made the game around it. And yeah, it's really good. It's a weird paradox because visually speaking, the game shouldn't be creepy, the aesthetic isn't scary on its own. But it's just an uncanny feeling that feels unique to this game, like everything is just off than it should be. It's simultaneously full of life and lifeless, and so isolated, especially in its environments. The environment itself has helped that it feels so alone yet creepy, going through the studio emulating being alone at work at night and feeling very nervous that something else is there despite everything being well lit and well cartoony. Like it should feel safe but isn't, compared to a lot of other horror games that mostly are just, hey, what if we had a perfectly normal happy place but we forgot to pay the electric bill and now it's all dark and spooky. Also helped by the ambience, the soft violin, the creaking, where you don't know if it's the old wood creaking or someone else is with you. Also with a few cat scares that are in. Some are kind of forced, like I hate this one, but there are more subtle ones like the lights going off and passing this room, and a bendy cutout suddenly moving when you leave a room and then vanishing later. It's really making you feel like something else is with you right now, but you don't know what. But again, it's more subtle, things showing something is wrong in the studio than just trying to scare you. Well, until you see this.
Oh my god. Joey, what were you doing?
Okay, either these guys someone brought a cartoon to life and gutted it, or a kid went sicko on a park mascot. From the mini posters, we have Boris the Wolf, a kind of goofy-like figure who gets involved in antics with the titular dancing demon, and is a bit goofy, like especially in the alpha where it looks more like a Toontown CSI case. It makes you instantly wonder how the hell is this possible, and is the biggest evidence at this point that something unnatural is going on since they're literally killing cartoon characters, but also appreciate how it's not done as a jump scare. You just find it and wonder what the heck is happening. But if that disturbs you, it's something that a few games with darts can fix. We do get some exposition from an audio tape by Wally Franks, one of the custodians, done in a very Bioshock manner, which I'll get more into later. It's another thing that adds to the eeriness of the game, hearing the voices of those who worked here, but never seeing them. And this is used continually through the games for these pre-incident perspectives, never hint about how the progress. It does seem kind of arbitrary, but I feel this is the workers venting their frustrations, and it's really not too different from how Bioshock, or especially like Fallout does, leading around random holotapes and terminals for the exact same thing. It's like finding convenient notes on how to progress, every game does that. Wally says that Joey's lost it and the studio is going to hell and back, with Joey demanding the workers offer tributes from their stations to start the machine, giving us more insight on what to do. So we get an object that represents each of the studio's elements: maintenance, engineering, archive, music, marketing, and of course animation, foreshadowing the future levels and departments we'll find ourselves into. It's a neat touch. And normally this whole chapter could be done like less than 10 minutes, but I took half an hour, one to get enough footage, and two because I realized I am complete garbage at memorizing locations, and some I kept getting lost on the smallest map of the entire game. Pretty embarrassing. But we got all the thingies and set up the ink presser. Now let's see this neat thing Joey promised. Who the hell poured this up and We woke up something we really shouldn't have, as the studio is literally coming apart and breaking down as we have to make a mad dash for the exit. And again, for how mellow and how built this part is, it was really shocking, an instant rush of adrenaline, and makes what seems like a normal place to practically hell in an instant, reinforcing you shouldn't have done that. Need to talk a bit about the earlier versions of this chapter, like the alpha test demos had Chunky Boy here be like, hey, how you doing? As the music and sound effects really do most of the work, and the effects don't exactly sell it too much. Bit better than the next one with the ink demon's more proper humanoid and more threatening form with better lighting and effects. But I do think that the final version was the best for the sudden ferocious animosity. The following animation that doesn't give you a good look at the thing, wondering what the hell it is, and much more drastic destruction of the studio. But before we can make it to the exit, the floor completely gives way as we somehow survive it, luckily calming the situation to progress some more. Funny how before there wasn't even flooded ink to break our fall. Henry really just is built different. We get introduced to lowering ink pressure, which happens a lot later, and get introduced to the axe and a brief tutorial on how to use it, doing it like a tool and breaking apart wooden boards before it's used for combat later. But we stumble upon a pentagram giving us foreshadowing flashes until being knocked out. I like this chapter a lot. Yeah, it's very simple, but it's so atmospheric and really is so mellow yet creepy. It raises enough intrigue to make you wonder what's going on, and it's no wonder that it got a lot of people interested to see how this whole thing plays, especially with how good its aesthetics and unique idea are, and wondering what the ink machine is and how Bendy came to life. But for chapter 2, The Old Song, we have the gameplay and elements evolve more. It was actually about a 6-week turnaround from the last chapter when it came out, including refreshing the first chapter, which is pretty impressive for a team of 2 people at this point. So we wake up after that, get our axe back, and smash our way through the studio corridors, and more ritualistic sites with another tape. We hear from a guy named Sammy Lawrence who's randomly like an occult preacher, fitting for the satanic imagery. But come on dude, you're worshiping a cartoon character, get real.
I said, can I get an amen?
Hey, what the hell are you? Get away from me, Sammy boy! So yeah, these just got a whole lot creepier. This is all your fault, you bendy bastard! Ugh! Actually, not gonna lie, smashing stuff with the axe is super cathartic, something about it. But we make it through further, and oh my god, what the f is that? Yeah, we really are not alone here anymore, so we probably got jump scared by some inky guy before he disappears completely. Amping up more the suspense since they're the only other signs of life aside from the ink demon from before, it's quite the shock. I blame you for this. Yeah! Wait, what? Die! Why won't you die? But it's okay, we got bacon soup, that's all that really matters. I swear, something about the minor mechanics is so satisfying. I don't think anyone can play this game without gulping every can of soup in sight. But after some small backtracking, we open the gates to find ourselves in the music department. Yeah, we're going through the entire facility with really nice orchestration. Seriously makes it so much more eerie. But it's easy enough. Let's just turn on the lights and Yep, that's right. We got actual combat here. If you think about it, it's kind of a rarity in horror games since most of us run from the monsters there. It's really simple here. These guys just die in one swing of the axe, but it does have a bit of cooldown between swings and your own relatively slow movement, so you gotta time it as best you can. It's not like you just spam it. The searchers are the easiest enemies in the games, only able to crawl and lunge and die in a swing of the axe, but they primarily spawn in these puddles and can take you by surprise. Also, remember how doofy they were in the first build? They look so Gumby. But it's okay, we can now play some pool and calm our nerves. After that, we get full access to the facility and get a bit of Sammy Lawrence again. And we see he was the music director of the studio, and while he's a bit grumpy, he's a normal guy. You wonder what the hell could have happened to him to make him change so much. But we hear they installed the ink drain it's pumped to the exit in his office, which he needs to get to, but it's also flooded. So we gotta find a way to drain it to get out. And so the game introduces actual puzzles compared to the first chapter, which was more of a big fetch quest. It's a welcome change that doesn't stand up for the rest of the game. But at this point, it's still more of an introductory part with relatively simple stuff to ease you to the more complex stuff later on in the game. We also hear about Susie Campbell and a new cartoon character, Alice Angel, who's really excited to voice her and finds kinship in the role. I hope this isn't foreshadowing. But back on the grind, we got stuff to do. Find Wally's keys in one of the trash cans, open the closet to find one of Sammy's tapes, telling us of a sanctuary room he hid to make his best work. We can find the pump, and we find out how he did it listening to the Projectionist room from the Projectionist Norman Polk, a guy I can already tell I'm gonna hate. Cluing you in that Sammy somehow set up a system where if instruments are played when the projector's on, his hidden door can open. Also, the cutouts move and increase when you go back and forth, and you get up to 8. It's a neat touch, and again, one of those things that add to the eeriness that you're always being watched. But we open it and find the secret room with the pump, as well as messages, pentagrams, and a toilet. Well, you know what they say about where a man does his best work. We can finally leave, and god damn it, you bendy bastard! Who the f are you? Yeah, more searchers show up and jump scares are practically swarmed. As you get more to the health system, it's pretty forgiving for the most part. We have about 6 hits as your screen gets more inky until you black out and go back to the respawn point of these bendy statues back to your last save, so check in when you can. But luckily you recover in a few seconds. Searchers are easy, but they can take you by surprise and swarm you, so you gotta be careful. So with that out of the way, we go back to Sammy's room and... oh. Okay, so in the first version, you go to Sammy's office, but since the chapter is pretty short, they added an extra part in the infirmary. Now that's pumped away, leading to a small sewer level, and leave me alone, damn it! Hearing another audio log and a more nervous searcher with the wheel and swanky hat beneath a nab while they keep running away. Just stay still! You know what? Screw it! Haha, how do you like that?
Sorry I had to do that. Nice hat, though.
He is right, it is a nice hat. But we can go up and finally get to Sammy's office. Also, there's a room with a piano and you hear a moan when you play it for whatever reason. There is no explanation to this aside from getting an achievement called Johnny's Broken Heart, who I assume it's Johnny? I don't know. But we could turn the pump on now, but we can listen to the radio for some tunes. Hell yeah, this is banging, and might sound familiar. Yeah, this is none other than Build Our Machine by DA Games, arguably the most popular Bendy fan song there is, and included in the actual game. It's awesome. This game does this a lot, even with other popular pieces like ones made by Cal and Allen Music and JT Music. It's just a sweet addition to the game, contributing to the unified community the game has gotten that I haven't really seen before. And if you don't like this game, you gotta admit, we got some awesome fan songs out of it. They even put in fan art and art contest entries in the game, which is another great type of community involvement to have your art featured as a poster. And I actually remember trying to enter these. I just wish I was actually able to draw back then. But enough about old art woes and a game about art woes. Let's get out of here. And now you must build up a machine you died.
Rest your head. It's time for bed.
As we wake up to find the inky figure was actually Sammy Lawrence the whole time. What a twist. So something really is going on in the studio where even the employees became ink creatures and suddenly became more horrifying. Sammy was a normal guy just doing his job and was turned into this faceless ink monster with an occultist mindset. It's really sad and tragic, and likely every other ink creature was too. Even Hat Guy was probably Jack Lane, which I kind of feel bad for smashing him. Almost. He also mentions that we look familiar, implying that he remembers Henry back when he worked there, but also decides that Sammy preaches that we are the sacrifice to appease the ink demons, and hopes that he will free Sammy from his horrific ink body. His buff, sexy ink body, like my god, for a formless ink abomination, he sure is ripped. Kind of funny comparing the beta model, which is pretty dumpy, but the modeler made him much more muscular after. The animation is a lot more dynamic and expressive than the pre-release for the updated version after Chapter 3, now that a much more skilled staff for modeling and animation. It's pretty nice getting before Sammy just kind of stood there. Side note, but I also like how Sammy's design is so scavenged, like making the face out of the Bendy cutouts, and snagging overalls from a Boris corpse. It feels neat. But it's time to sleepy sheepies or whatever he's saying, and he's gonna sacrifice us. But apparently the ink demon doesn't like a kiss up, and instead seemingly kills him. Seemingly. But we still will break out and get our axe and get the hell out of there before Bendy decides to have us for seconds. But at least we can finally get out of here and oh shit! Yeah, not gonna lie, with your run speed and the music, this chase is like literally anxiety inducing. But we get away. I guess he can't get through a barred door. Maybe he just gave up. It's not like he'll teleport later or anything. Anyway, let's get rid of this anxiety by playing with some dolls.
Hello? Someone there? I know you're in here. Come out and show yourself.
Oh my god! Goofy?
Boris?
Oh, yeah, Boris. And with that, it ends Chapter 2. It's a nice small level, especially compared to what comes after, but it uses more of the complex puzzle mechanics and combat that will become much more intricate. But more importantly, it uses a lot of the lore and mystery of the studio. More on the studio pre-incident, and how the music department was run, and how Joy managed to piss off a lot of the staff and the general unease they all have. And of course, makes you wonder how these ink creatures exist, how the staff were turned into them, especially Sammy Lawrence. Whitefield did a really great job building him up, and the mystery of his character, until it's revealed he was the guy stalking you. But also, the music department was a fun little area as well, and gets you more into the studio itself. But Chapter 3 is where the game really gets more advanced. As I said before, at this point, the game's development got a whole lot stronger. With more people on staff and longer time frames, that they could become a whole lot more ambitious with the project, that makes the previous 2 chapters feel more like a tutorial. But this was when Bendy was really picking up in traction too, with dedicated trailers showing off actual animation from the studio. This is a neat touch, where Bendy wants to have a picnic and Boris eats a sandwich. Oh my god, I get it now! Bendy ripped open Boris' stomach to get his sandwich back. It also ends with the silhouette confronting Bendy, but that doesn't really get answered. Huh. I mean, it's not really anything important, but it makes you wonder. But we wake up in what seems to be Boris' safe house, tying into the kind of spin-off game Boris in the Dark Survival, seeing him scavenge the studio for supplies and avoiding monsters. And look at him, isn't he so adorable? Look at that snoot in that animation. Actually, really nice to have a proper cartoon character in the game, but for some reason won't let us sleep until we make food for him. Which likely there's a lot of bacon soup around, which I think is the only time we're collecting it is actually a thing, and might not be just chugging it as soon as we get it. But with that, he gives us the door key and we can head out. And he did actually finish the soup, neat touch. We can give him a little bone, he looks so cute. We gotta make it like Wally Franks and get out of here with our good buddy Boris by our side. Also, I really thought Boris was Wally, but he's actually not. Weird.
I'm gonna kill you.
And find our way getting a light through a very dark chamber where nothing actually happens. Word of this mechanic doesn't really come back when it's possible for more scares. We hand over the light to Boris as he vents to unlock a door separating us, where we get to the toy department, with really great cinematic shots and especially music setting up the scene. It's fantastic. Giving a ton of Bioshock vibes. And I should talk about that. This game is very Bioshock inspired, even admitted by the devs, which is very obvious on the design, music, even elements of the gameplay. It might be a point of contention for people, but I absolutely love it. Bioshock is one of my favorite games that practically revolutionized gaming with its storytelling, themes, design, and gameplay. And its atmosphere and aesthetics are so amazing that rarely have been matched. I wish more games took inspiration from it in its themes and aesthetics. I think it seriously works with this game of that claustrophobic yet immersive atmosphere with sad, somber yet threatening tones. People say it's bad because of it, which, wow, a game takes inspiration from one of the most highly regarded and famous games of all time that influenced the entire medium. Wow, why would they do that? This game does it so well and it fits perfectly. Hell, Bendy is more Bioshock than some of the actual Bioshock titles. But we gotta move past the toy department with a small conveyor belt puzzle and camera for Jacksepticeye to progress.
They don't be seeing what the big deal is.
Also, DA Games gets a role as Grant Cohen, the financial manager, but it's a lot harder to tell.
You say, the real problem, Mr. Drew, is that he never actually tells us little people anything.
And, whoa. It's not that bad. What's up with this? Alice, oh my god!
A new fly in my endless web.
So Alice is real and mean, but we're given two paths, the angel and the demon path. The angel path reveals a tape from Susie that's actually lost the role of Alice to Allison Pendle, is completely devastated, as the demon path gives us a tape showing off our first look at Joey Drew in a fitting Walt Disney type speech with sinister overtone. But oh my god, if I see him, god damn it, who the hell's doing that? Oh, it's just you, Boris. Well, I can never say mad at you and your little snoot. We get another path, including a side one, which actually did implement the pathway we saw in the trailer when it didn't need to. It's a nice touch. And glimpse of the ink machine? We see it go deeper and deeper into the studio, so it's not out of the way just yet. But hey, look at this, new cartoon lore. The Butcher. So we got a new enemy type, the Butcher Gang, which are stronger than the previous enemies. All mangled up whatchasees. So we got Monkey Pants, Captain Crack, and Spindly Johnny. Those are their names, just trust me on this. But it's nice that we see actual cartoon enemies in the game, even if they are super mangled and disturbing, which does kind of lead to a big point of contention in the game. People complain that the game isn't about cartoons actually coming to life, and should use a lot more aspects of animation, of toon gags and physics, and the game's bad for it. And yeah, you're right, you know, on the same topic, Cuphead really should have been about modern Disney animation instead. What's that? That is absolutely not like the intention of the game? Exactly, it's not the intention of the game, shut up! This game is about traversing an animation studio, exploring the process of making animation, not about animation itself. You meet the staff, you go through the departments, the game looks like a cartoon, but it's not actually a cartoon. It's an allegory on 30s Disney style animation, he made direct references to Walt Disney and aspects and controversies about the studio. The cartoons aren't technically even real, the result of the ink machine creating unfinished abominations and even actual demons in the real world. They're not actually cartoons. That's not what the game is about or what it's trying to be. And saying the game is bad because it's not a completely different game that fundamentally won't work in the same style, that's not a valid complaint. This is literally just wanting another game. It's like what I had to deal with Ruby Gilman complaints. Wow, the high school movie has high school stuff. It's bad because it didn't make an entirely different movie. Or even in a similar vein that people say that Epic Mickey isn't living up to its potential with its complete horror concept art, which doesn't even seriously consider, like, understand what game this is. Again, I can't stand this complaint. It's not even about the games, but blaming the devs for not going for an entirely separate game that might not even work conceptually, since cartoons on their own aren't freaking scary. Like, I don't know how you're gonna make Looney Tune gags actually threatening and scary. So please, quit it with this complaint and get actual pros of the game we got. Speaking of which, it's weird that people compare Bendy and Cuphead, like, legitimately, when they're two completely different games in completely different genres. I mean, they're both about cartoons, made by different studios, decades apart from each other, but I guess all animation is the same. Oh yeah, the game. Back to Inky and the Bend Machine. So now we got the main element of the chapter, the elevator, as Alice wants to meet with us.
You've got a date with an angel.
Hell yeah, Boris, I got a date with Ink Waifu. Nothing can go wrong and oh. Sorry, Boris. You need a minute? Does this count as gore of my comfort character? A lot of gore. But we meet Alice and,
She's a Two-Face. Like the Batman villain? If that helps you.
I actually do like this, as Alice is our first look at someone human in his art style, but still blending it in a toony way, and literally as well. Like a cartoon trying to be realistic, but it can't be, and still keeps disgusting elements to it. I like it a lot. But that's the point, as Susie here actually turned to Alice Angel, or at least close to it, and obsesses with becoming just like your dream, to become her in real life, to the point of psychotic insanity. I also do like the animation of the game too. It's really nice, especially with the style.
Now we come to the question. Do I kill you? Do I tear you apart to my heart's delight? I was a wiggling, pussing, shapeless slug. The second time, well, it made me an angel.
Alice will spare us, even let us leave if we get her supplies she needs, and sends us off. So we got a really big map this time, of multiple levels and floors, meant to find different things. Now there is something important, which in the first release, the items were all randomized in every floor throughout the entire mission. And while this chapter does encourage exploration and has longer playtime, it leads to a lot of annoying backtracking through a rather long map, even if it was designed for that with the elevator. So later was streamlined with each floor being devoted to a specific task. That does make it a lot easier and less tedious, but does make the chapter a whole lot shorter. But that's not the biggest thing, as Alice warns of the Ink Demon. He is an ever-present part of the chapter, able to teleport between walls in any floor and can be activated at any time, with the only warning being his inky aura a few seconds as he spawns. And if he spots you, he'll do a and then runs at you, and his touch is insta-kill and he's invincible. You can only get away by hiding in convenient miracle stations. And this makes the chapter absolutely anxiety-wrecking for me. Look, honestly, I'll just admit, I'm just a scared little weenie baby with horror, and I really don't do well with these. Like, I could play something like BioShock just fine, weirdly enough, with its horror-like imagery and tone, but survival horror, I'm just a pure wreckin'. The constant anxiety knowing that Bendy can spawn at any time, in anywhere, to kill me drives my nerves so absolutely whack that it makes me terrified to play through this chapter knowing there's no way out. It's just... It's the main reason I don't replay this game much, because this chapter is just too much for me. Like, I can learn where the jump scares happen, but this makes my heart race whenever I'm out in the open. This chapter encourages exploration, but this mechanic genuinely just doesn't want to make me explore more than I have to. But wandering is a terrible sin after all. If there's anything I learned from this game in Foster's, is that any character named Bendy is gonna be a prick. But before we jump, we first check out the gears for Alice's torture machines, I guess, in the Heavenly Toys level. Easy enough. Not so much before, but still. And then we get...
The swollen ones. They're just stuffed full of extra thick ink. It makes me sick. And yet... it's the perfect thing for keeping myself together.
Okay, guess we gotta make Alice extra thick. She gives us a syringe to go after a style of searcher, similar to Jack Fane from before, who runs when we meet them. But now they keep respawning in points, so it's not hard to just wait to get them. And Boris, you better get back up here. You are my emergency escape. Ugh, God, as if this couldn't get any worse. I'm just gonna not. No. But now we gotta get some pipe valves with a plunger. Yeah, this will kill him. Well, Luigi did teach me that plungers are surprisingly good at taking on natural foes. Speaking of which, there are actually different strengths of each weapon, with the axe being the strongest and the plunger and syringe the weakest, which does affect how easy each chapter is dealing with enemies. But the pipe puzzle, while simple, is very tedious and enemies just kind of love attacking when your back is turned. And staying in one place for really long is not good when there's an insta-kill teleporting demon after you when you're out in the open, which yeah, it does happen. But to our next task.
Let's remove them, shall we?
Hell yeah, now you're speaking my language. Take that! Catharsis.
Not to mention, he hates it when I do that. I would hide if I were you.
Oh, you dirty bitch. I'm sorry, Mr. Bendy. I didn't mean what I said earlier. I actually really like you. I didn't say you were a bendy bastard. That was Oswald. Oh, well, at least that's over with now. Now I can finally go back and— oh, you son of a— So yeah, I quit here out of, well, fear, and not wanting a death on this run that would happen. However, after I saw my entire save got lost for some reason, and I'd have to do the whole chapter again, and yeah, I really don't want to do that, especially with the additional anxiety of another run, as well as wasting more time. So I actually got a friend of mine to play and send me their footage for the rest of the chapter, just to let you know. But after that, we get a random horde battle with a bunch of enemies swarming. But we get the final and by far the scariest part of the game, level 14, the Inky Abyss, who get ink hearts from corpses. And oh god, you're back. This is the Projectionist, who was once Norman Polk, now stuck as a unique ink monster. And I gotta love this design. It's so simple in concept, yet so horrifying. I like how the game goes beyond just cartoons and ink enemies. And people tell me this game isn't scary. Like, bullshit, this part is legitimately terrifying. We've got a prowling monster in the Projectionist, which as you can guess can only see from the side of his ongoing projector. However, it's not that simple, as his head also bobs up and down, and it's not a linear cone, so staying out of his sight is easier said than done. And his lair is flooded with ink, drastically dropping your movement speed, and is filled with other ongoing projectors with the same sound as him, making it very easy to confuse where he is. And the lair is a practical maze of different corridors and shorter and longer paths as the Projectionist passes through, so you can't always tell which path he's gonna take. And if you get caught at all, you have to face and run like hell because he can kill you super quick. It's a really well made and completely terrifying segment that feels on par with a lot of similar horror games. Now you get teased with a Tommy gun at the start, which you can easily kill it, but only if you get the glob in the toy department and make it an ink machine, take the demon path, and not die at all, which is what I originally tried to do before the safe corruption. And you gotta scavenge in the abyss and avoid being seen by this complete monstrosity. The first time playing it, I was completely terrified, and it took me like half an hour just to get the nerve to get out of the stations. But if you do that, we're done with Alice's chores, and thank God. Now we can finally get out of here, and hey, this is an OSHA violation! God, this studio has a lot of floors. Alice refused to let us leave since our Boris is the most perfect Boris she's seen. Very true. And she needs his heart to make her perfect. Until we somehow survive this. Then again, Henry really does spend most of this game crashing through floors, as Alice menacingly approaches and Boris desperately tries to rub our cheeks until she uses her force powers to grab him back. Kind of reminded me of that Once in a Massacre video. And that ends chapter 3, a super ambitious piece that does elevate, no pun intended, the game and the story, adding a bunch of new mechanics and an expansive map in a huge fetch quest doing different things on different levels, all while playing a huge cat and mouse game with the ink demon as a constant threat, adding a ton of horror and dread. Really heavily focusing on the hiding mechanic, now it's used for the rest of the game. It's when Bendy was starting to really evolve itself more, and despite its problems, I do appreciate it, especially learning more about the studio lore, seeing Alice as the puppet master villain, so different what you think our cartoon role would be, giving us another multi-arc antagonist aside from the Ink Demon, and the Projectionist part was legitimately terrifying. But time for chapter 4, Colossal Wonders, and my personal favorite of the game. So we gotta get our cartoon doggo back. I mean, think about all he did, not doing anything until we feed him, jump scaring us, and being useless in a crisis situation, just like a real pet. But we find ourselves in the archive room, but we gotta find a way to progress. Oh, what happened here? Well, maybe this will help. You know, I actually really love this part because it's such subtle horror. Like, it's not a jump scare or a monster, but it's truly deeply unsettling and disturbing that sets up so much mystery and atmosphere this game should get more credit for. But we get to the archives and... oh. It's actually another great set piece that adds dread without it being a jump scare or danger. I really appreciate it. Well, at least until later. Screw it, I'm going back and... oh, I don't like this. But forging on, we see... Christ, this place makes Aperture Science seem like a CVS pharmacy. How big is this? And I really gotta wonder what these cages were for. We'll be introduced to a new mechanic, the exempt machines. So we can get some globs of that extra thick ink from before and stick it in the machine, and turning the dial will turn it into a new thing. It's actually a really cool idea that takes advantage of the unique setting, and I feel like it's an entire game with this mechanic. Shame it came in so late, but I don't know how much of it would have worked in earlier chapters. But I do wish it was more of a thing from this point on. Now we could make a gear, but I'd rather just listen to some tunes. Hell yeah! This world may be your canvas, will you paint on it beware? Well, after that cat scare, I can't get any worse. Jesus! But we also see the ink machine going deeper and deeper, so it's still not done yet. Just out of reach, as it's one of the cool looking set pieces, Alice taunts us knowing that we're here to save Boris and hurry up. As we see...
He always finds me. Oh no. I just want to go home. When do we go home? When do we go home?
well, that's sad. What's... oh god! Don't worry, they're not here to harm us. Yet. These are the lost ones. Other employees of the studio who didn't become toons and just ink creatures and probably what Sammy is, but a lot buffer. As you can hear, they're lost, depressed, and just miserable, wanting to go home and leave the studio. It also seems like they're the ones writing the messages on the wall, praying for salvations from this living hell. It's a bit poignant that not all the creatures you see are monsters, just the people who made them, and adds to the somber feeling of the game as well. And I was wrong, the darkness does come back as we ourselves vent. Ah! Well, he hasn't forgot about us just yet. Luckily he's not free roaming this level, which thank god I don't need it again. Though that banging is really making me nervous. What's causing that? Oh, it's just you. Knock it off, would you? In the next room, we find out that Joey wasn't just trying to build the cartoon empire, but wants to go further, just like Walt did, and design an entire theme park based off of Bendy. Again, pushing the Disney allegory where he hires an esteemed attraction designer, Bertram Piedmont, to make it for him, and their egos butt heads. It's not just lore, as we get to the main hub of the level, Bendy Land Storage. And you know what that means? Creepy Carnival, one of my favorite aesthetics ever. Oh, does it have fair games? Hell yeah, it does. Yeah, mini games, sweet. Gotta get the perfect score on first try. This is so much fun, I love it.
Tell me, are you having fun? I'm sure Boris doesn't mind waiting for his rescue party.
Shut the hell up. After what you pulled last chapter, I deserve this. One thing I do commend this game for is the variety of locations despite this being in a massive studio. Every chapter introduces something new and different, from the animation halls to the music department to the toy stores, even throwing in a carnival here. It makes the locations and things to do never feel stale and repetitive, and I gotta appreciate it. But Alice is holding Boris in the haunted house attraction, and we gotta activate all the switches in the storage facility to get to him. First is easy enough, just go through this door and... oh god, what the hell? I now understand Rigby.
My greatest fear! Amusement park mascots!
Though they don't do anything, I wonder if maybe it should have added a jet machine puzzle instead. Would be kinda neat. But then we have another part having to get past some butcher boys, but we don't have any weapons. Luckily there's a bunch of empty cans, as it introduces some sort of stealth mechanic, where we can throw them and the game will be attracted by the noise. Admittedly, the AI is a bit janky here, so I understand why it doesn't come back after this. Also, you can totally just run past these guys if you really want to, but I like to pretend I'm doing things right. And if we do, we activate the switch and see this robot and audio tape.
I swear, when my back's turned, that thing's moving.
Okay, this thing now worries me. Actually, you'd expect a weeping angel type mechanic, which does sound terrifying, but it doesn't do anything. I'm just confused on why they implied it, and that seems like a missed opportunity here. Like, why would you tease it? Was it just some sort of FNAF reference? But we go back to the hub and get to the next room. Attractions, storage, and probably the best part of the chapter. Love this room and the lighting. I can't kick enough of this game's aesthetics. But hey, an audio tape looks like it's from good old Birdie from before. Huh, why is there no little transcript? Why is it like normal audio?
This is my park, my glory. You may think I'm wrong, but I'm still here.
Oh god! Yep, we got boss fights. I love this so much. You never think a game like this has actual boss fights, but they're delivering here. Bertram Piedmont is our first look at them, and it's one of the most fun, even if it is simple. Looks like he somehow fuses in one of his own creations of those weird octopus rides, and his main attack is by hitting you, twirling around, and smashing with the arms. But you're safe in the corner, so it's not too much of a threat. Eventually try and slam down one of his arms, you gotta use the axe to smash off the bolts on either side before it recovers and smacks you away. Or instead of doing that, you can go take a ride. Whee! Ah! So the main strategy is to bait him to slam down next to you and take out the sides of his arms and get back before he can smack you and help you get a good advantage in other angles where it's hard to do at once. It's a really fun boss fight and I freaking love the music. It's one of my favorite tracks. But if you keep going, you can break all the arms, causing the machine to go haywire as Bertram, who's already pretty creepy, looks dead and sees the gas air like a fist before sealing himself away and presumably dies. Messed up. But not as messed up as whoever the hell designed this chair. Now we can make our way to the last station and oh god, I thought I was rid of this asshole in chapter 3. Luckily it's a lot easier than before with a smaller room and a complete circular arena. We gotta make it through the second floor, we gotta pull a lever. If we can just get behind him and... Oh, come on, I thought you couldn't hear me! Come on, save me, Joey! What? Oh my god, that actually worked. Well, with him gone somehow, we can take a listen to an audio tape showing Joey's really not the ambitious dreamer like he presents himself as.
You just have to believe in yourself and remain honest, motivated, and above all, who you really are. Okay, let's stop right there. I can only do so many takes in this trash a day.
But as we can finally leave, and come on, where did you come from? We go to the station where it looks like they're finally wising up just to open the thing they saw us crawl into. But then Ink Bendy shows up and we get a freaking villain fight. Hell yeah, as Ink Bendy shows his power and rips off the projectionist's head, seemingly spiteful at us as he walks away with the rest of the body. Jesus Christ. Poor Norman. And it's building up that Bendy's not done with us and he's truly the apex predator of the studio. But thanks anyway, I guess. Now we can finally get through the haunted house ride. Really starts setting up the final confrontation as Alice goads us about her just wanting what she deserves, to be beautiful, and knows that we're hungry before opening up to a huge room that's really nice looking. Again, I love this game's aesthetic. This room looks so nice. And in the end we get... Oh no. We're too late. Boris is our boss of this chapter, as Alice somehow Frankenstein them into a monster trying to kill us. And he's probably the best designed boss in the game. So we got a big arena and Boris is super powerful and spends the first phase trying to charge us, and with the movement speed it's a bit tricky to sidestep him as there's a lot of damage. 2 direct hits and you're done. But I'll have a brief cooldown where he's tired and spews up some convenient thick ink. Which also, there's a jet machine in the room we can use to try and turn the right dial and activate while trying to avoid Boris's attack to get a weapon. And then with the pipe, you can smack him when he's vulnerable. Also, the game teases you with a bone you can give Boris before, but you can't do anything with it. You can't save Boris. You gotta end him. Also, the music is really nice, suspenseful yet tragic. Next phase has us doing Hulk smashes with a pretty big aerial effect, so you gotta jump in time. It's a little hard to dodge, but again, wait till he spews, make a pipe, and smack his chest when vulnerable. Then the last phase has the ride carts go by as Boris will pick them up and chuck them at you across the whole arena. And one hit and your like 50-year-old body dies, so you really gotta avoid them. But he'll eventually tire himself out, you can smack him one last time as he dies. And there goes your only friend in this hellhole, because you were too late. Another thing of note is that it's said that Henry was actually the one who made Boris in the first place, and it's like the death of his own creation. But Alice can't believe he won as she just runs at us. Like, what's your plan here? What are you gonna do, use her force powers? And then suddenly gets stabbed through the chest and dies. Looks like the sword actually is mightier than the pen. But we end being saved by the Fleischer version of The Last of Us. And that was chapter 4, my favorite chapter of the whole game. And it's one of my favorite aesthetics, and the cinematic scenery and locations were really through the roof, being one of the best looking parts of the game. I love the variation of the different rooms and challenges, with new mechanics, especially the new dent puzzles. And the boss fights were all super fun, the best additions to the game. Again, I love the environment and creativity of the level, and it's definitely my favorite. But let's finally finish Dr. Bendy's Mean Being Ink Machine with the final part, Chapter 5, The Last Reel. So we're imprisoned by our so-called rescuers, who are actually Alison Pendle, the other Alice Angel voice actress who replaced Susie, and Thomas Connor, the reoccurring maintenance engineer from the Gent Company, who's the Boris with angry eyes, so you know he's serious. Also with a pretty cool design with a robot arm, presumably from that Bendy animatronic. I guess maybe it was alive and Tom just killed it. Allison gives us some insight on why people run the walls, and those wanting salvation, and saying she forgot who she used to be, being a lot more of the hopeful dreamer who likes us while Tom doesn't trust us. Allison also gives us a mirror that can reveal invisible ink messages written by someone that warns us she'll leave us for dead. And it's soon proven right as the ink demon found this safe house that despite Allison's wishes, she leaves us behind. But using the backlight, we can see a secret way to get out, hiding a pipe we can smash our way out with. Who's writing it? We'll see. As we can make an escape through the caverns until finding an ink river and a barge we can take after them. Something's in the water. Oh, my aquaphobia is not gonna like that. Okay, take the ride through the river of darkness. I really don't like this. Okay, so it's a clearing at least. Gotta unclog the rudder and... Okay, I'm not gonna lie, this is seriously one of my biggest fears, being stuck above murky black water with something, I don't even know what the hell that thing is, trying to attack you and drag you down there. Like, it's pushing my thalassophobia to the max here. Like, again, this is seriously terrifying to me, and whatever the hell the hand belongs to keeps following you as you repeatedly stop as your rudder is clogging. You gotta hurry and clog it and max out the accelerator before it gets close. Like, you don't even know whatever the hell that thing is, it just wants you dead. I don't even like turning around to get a good look at the thing. I'm so stressed out, I push the pedal to the metal, and this part takes so long, I swear. But after what feels like an eternity, we find a shantytown harbor, presumably made by the Lost Ones, as we can touch solid ground away from whatever the hell that thing is. Seriously, that hand's gonna be in my nightmares. But it seems abandoned, but then...
Abandoned. I trusted you.
Sammy? I thought you died.
We've all been waiting, but now he will set us free.
No more sleepy sheepies, he's gonna disembowel us. Unfortunately, he has the superior axe when we had the pipe, so we kite him and hope he can get a good hit and run when you take too much damage. And I guess that buff physique really gives him a lot of defense. But we whack the mask off him as he runs away to not see his face. And we see exactly what we expected. But before he can kill us, Tom sneaks up and axes his noggin, killing him for real, as Tom now trusts us fighting off Sammy and gives us his axe. But Allison says that Sammy was the one keeping the Lost Ones and Searchers in line, and without him, they're on the attack. I guess it makes sense Sammy turned to a dark preacher, gathering everyone he could, in hopes of salvation by the only being powerful enough to give it. As it leads up to a massive horde battle with legions and legions of Lost Ones and Searchers on the attack. And it's the most fun in the chapter, with Allison and Tom on your side in a pure combat montage. The two have to draw the attention as you can whittle it down, but you can occasionally be swarmed and overpowered, so it can be a bit tricky just to try not to get cornered, and keep moving to recover until you get back in the fray. But after a really long time you clear them off and they join you as they want you to lead. Oh come on, we don't have any luck with fragile walkways. I told you! So yeah, we get separated again, which I don't really like and wish we could have stuck with the two more. But this might have been a blessing in disguise, as we're in the administrator's office with Joey Drew's office and the film vault. Hey, nice Bioshock reference. But we need to fix the floating problem. But the pipes are missing and there's a jet machine that can make them, but we have no ink. And the administrator's offices are being patrolled by butchers and we got no weapons, so we gotta sneak through the rooms. And I've heard a lot of points of contention and yeah, I agree, it's not great. The ink maker is by Joey Drew's office, but it's closer to the right side, so people think the left first are gonna be for a much longer time in an already time-consuming place. And I swear the butchers can see you when they shouldn't, like come on, I was in the room! It's so needlessly long and boring, and honestly I just recommend you do the strategy of running past them with the ink and then hiding in the miracle station for them to go back and do it each time they get a pipe part. But when you do, the ink demon appears. Not on the level, thankfully, but it's to warn you that he's nearby. I was wondering if they should have added the spawns for Chapter 3, but no, you really don't need that in a stealth segment. You can bait the butchers out to be killed by Bendy's aura to explore in peace, but I messed up my attempts, so... However, this part contains important audio logs that fully describe what happens and fills in lore gaps. Joey drew, with the success of the studio, cartoons, and upcoming attractions, dreamed the impossible, to find a way to make his cartoons come to life, to be real and meet people. To do that, he commissioned the ink machine from the Gen Company, a machine that somehow combines technology with satanic magic to make figures out of animation reels. The first attempt was to bring Bendy to life, but this was a horrific monstrous abomination Joey disposed of, calling it too horrific and never trying it again, at least with Bendy. It's implied that the ink demon isn't just an ink abomination, but is possessed by a literal demon since it was a soulless vessel. Joey then demands that if they need souls, then he has thousands, and so he coerces employees in a ceremony, including Susie Campbell, to transfer their bodies and souls in the ink machine to bring his cartoons to life. But they failed, never quite becoming the idealized cartoons, as most became ink abominations that scavenge the studio to this day. It's pretty messed up, but interesting nonetheless. We make our way to the film vault, reunited with Allison and Tom. Again, I wish this whole part somehow had to do with them. It would be much better, especially since they're really interesting characters we don't know much about. Harry needs to get something in the vault that's lost, and that the ink demon has it, where the others thinks is a death wish to go to their lair. But Tom punches his way through a metal door. Again, this guy should have been in here more. Leading to... It looks like the first floor studio, huh? The ink demon crawls by as the confrontation comes clear. You know what? This cartoon has gone on for too long. We see the lair and we get probably one of the biggest twists of the series. That's not actually the ink machine. This is. And what we've seen going down every chapter is just one part of it. Oh my god. The ink machine is built up big time. It's what caused the entire game. Our fall into the studio, awakening Bendy, has created all the ink monstrosities. Teases you in so many chapters, just out of reach, and you figure just maybe, if you can get it, you can stop it and into horror, shut it down or something. But no, it's probably the size of a building. It's not gonna be that simple. It's just a cool and good twist that immediately amps up the stakes where you don't know how you're gonna get past. Unfortunately, the two can't follow since they're ink creations and will just dissolve in the massive ink river, so it's up to us to do this alone. Again, I'm disappointed because I wish most of this chapter was with them, and they finally get separated quickly as they join. But Allison says she knows we're the ones to set them all free.
Could have at least given me a weapon.
He's right, what gives? So the ink machine is our final level, and we see the horrifying chambers, which does seem to show how the inkification process happens. Brutal. As we get to the throne room or something, filled with clips of cartoons in-universe, derived from the posters submitted by fans, it must be really rewarding to see fan art brought to life in game. As we hear a log from Joey.
It's simply awe-inspiring what one can accomplish with their own hands. A lump of clay can turn to meaning if you strangle it with enough enthusiasm. Look what we've built. We created life itself, Henry. Not just on a silver screen, but in the hearts of those we entertain with our fancy moving pictures. But when the tickets stopped selling, when the next big thing came along, only the monsters remained. Shadows of the past. But you can save them, Henry. You can peel it all away. You see, there's only one thing Bendy has never known. He was there for his beginning, but he's never seen the end.
The end.
As the ink demon appears and morphs himself bigger, stronger, and into mugshot from Sly Cooper. Yeah, I'm not big on this design. Markiplier said it best that this works when you turn a cute character into a horrific brute like Boris. If you take a sinister, unearthly presence like Bendy and just make him a monster, it takes away that threat level. It's like if you gave Slenderman huge muscles as a final boss, it just doesn't work. But you can't say it's Bendy giving up all pretenses just wants to fully dedicate himself to killing you. And admittedly, I do have problems with this fight. The first part is a massive maze in the ink machine as Beast Bendy can't be killed, but instead charges like a mad bull across the walls and teleports through them. So the main goal is to activate switches hidden around the stage and avoid his charges to open up an exit. So you really gotta hug the walls as close as you can and hope he doesn't charge into you when he's teleporting. Or be like me and have him come out right on the wall you're hugging. It's still not really that good, but I don't know how you would do an invincible boss encounter anyway. But eventually, you can move to another chamber as Beast Bendy follows. You still have no way to attack him, but instead you have to destroy these vials, presumably for the ink machine, to decharge it similar to Brute Boris. It sounds harder than it is, as Bendy has a wide berth, and his charges will destroy the chambers no matter his momentum, so it's easy enough to go him to a side of the room and get him to charge again to do it. I do find the final fight pretty disappointing, but I like the idea of destroying the ink machine through Bendy. I think that would work a lot better, but this is the closest we get. As the lights go out, and we're free to get to the throne chamber again and place the last reel in the projector. Before Bendy can kill us, he's faced with every cartoon now displaying the end. He dissolves away in pain. Now, I think this ending is pretty contentious to people and call it underwhelming, but I think it makes perfect sense. Bendy at this point was completely invincible, immune to any weapon or attack, and that shouldn't change here. You can't defeat him conventionally. You can't gun down this demon, and doing it here will ruin the point. You have to defeat it in another way. Symbolically, destroy it in a metaphysical sense. Joey said it the best, that Bendy has seen everything, but not its ending. The shadow representing a past that can't let go. So you need to tell the ghost that it's dead. If this demon wants to be a cartoon so badly, then it has to end just like one. And with that, the cartoon ends. Literally, as we end up in the real world. Yeah, no cartoon, we're in a dingy little house or apartment. And it's quite the shock, it must be insanely confusing. We can gather some information. This is Joey's house, that the studio went under, though getting some messages from the employees moved on with their lives. But more curiously, we see a desk with what looks like storyboards of scenes we just played through, and even alternative scenes that never happened, like Bendy winning, Brute Boris fighting Sammy, Alice in a monster's form, and others. I'll get to it and why it's important in a second, as we meet Joey Drew himself, who invited Henry over to talk as he goes on how his greed and success blinded him. While Henry lived a good life with a loving family and was respected, Joey had nothing but a crooked empire and lost everything. He said that Henry pushed him, but should have pushed him harder. But he wants them to visit the workshop again, and he has to see something, showing us a door that leads us right through the beginning. Now, I know this ending confuses a lot of people, but I think it makes perfect sense. It makes the entire story brilliant. I'll get to it in just a bit. We get a frankly awesome credit scene I love. It's like a movie's credits with cool drawings and animation. Again, I love how it ends this way. And we get the seeing tool in every level now, being able to show hidden messages and reveals that it's actually Henry writing on the walls. He's gone through this cycle dozens of times. But we also get access to the archives showing off concept art and models and how they evolved over time in the descriptions. I love this so much. It's so nice to see these models by themselves and understand and appreciate the process. I love this type of stuff in media. I can't get enough. Yeah, I know BioShock did it, but hell, I love that. And more games need to do this. It's awesome. But to the ending. A lot of people are confused that it somewhat became real and then looped again, not sure what it means to the entire point. And admittedly, I don't know if my take is real, but I think it's the one that fits perfectly. You see, the game itself isn't real. The studio was real, the characters were real, a lot of the issues were real, but the game itself was not. Joey Drew was driven by greed and success, and did everything he could to make his own dreams come true. While Henry left and had a good life and a family, Joey's ambition made him toss people aside, treating them like dirt, and ruining their lives as to prop himself up. But eventually, when Bendy stopped being popular, when the studio had to shut down, he was left with nothing. No family, no friends, and too many burned bridges, just old and alone, seething with regret in a direct parallel to Walt Disney's controversies. The game is Joey's creation, his next project, an idea to atone for his own mistakes. A story where he was the boogeyman that exaggerates what he did with the studio. The reason why he never shows up himself, that he's the instigator, the cause of the problems, whose ambitions cause torment, displaying his vices and devotion to literally destroying the studio and making horrors from it. The workers he saw as nobodies, just people to control and push around, as shattered, faceless victims just wanted to be free and go home, lost in the endless studio. Others like Sammy and Susie had their dreams crushed, now made into insane victims of Joey's schemes, lashing out by what he did to them. But a few people he knew get to be the heroes, people fighting back against what he did. And Henry, the man he should have been, the person who could have saved Joey from himself, gets to be the true hero of the story. The person who could have fixed everything and free everyone, like he wished he would when he had something left to give. As Bendy is the monster of greed and ambition. As it's literally said, they're the remnants of the past. The shadows of the dreams turn to nightmares. The only way to defeat it is to end it. Stop the cartoons, stop the power play, and just move on. The game is literally a sketch, drawings, and an idea. That's why its art is like that. It's literally a sketch Joey is making. You're playing through it. The cycle is going through different revisions, versions, parts changing up and leaving gaps with every new idea, and version trying to perfect it like we see on the desk. This was the project he wanted to show Henry. It's why it actually ends hearing Henry's presumable kids asking for another story. It's the game, as Joey retells and remakes the idea he's had. It's an apology from Joey and his wrongdoings with hindsight. Now retold as a horror story, exemplifying the power and threat of greed and apathy and how it affects other people. It's one of the most poignant points of the game, and the message of treating people so disposable, obsessed with capitalistic greed, fame, and other earthly possessions that you lose your humanity and end up with nothing. There's even a hidden message in the elevator in chapter 3 that exemplifies it. Be kind to the people you meet on the way up, because you're going to meet the same people on the way down. It's one of the most poignant and compelling messages I've seen in a horror game that is so relevant even today, and I wish more people understood it and appreciate this game for it. Now, I don't know how Dark Rival confirms or denies it, but it's how I see it, and I love it. And yeah, I love this game, and I seriously think it doesn't get the appreciation it deserves. It's truly one of a kind, with an aesthetic that hasn't been tried before, using an identity all of its own. When a lot of Mascot Horror, and hell, just normal horror actually, blend together, you will never mistake Bendy and the Ink Machine for anything else. It does so much with the aesthetic and truly makes it feel like you're going through a messed up cartoon world. And it's really immersive and impressive, especially cinematic and inspiring. Obviously there's a sense of scale yet mellowness, horrifying yet somber. Very closely matching other game series I love to death. I hate that people hate this game because it's not some epic Mickey concept art like cartoon full horror, and that's unfair. This game isn't a cartoon. It's not a cartoon world, that's the point. It's a studio head so desperate to make that a reality, they corrupted and killed his staff to turn them into ink abominations roaming the studio as an allegory for Disney Studio and practice at the time. You can't fault a game for not taking a completely different direction from the ground up. If someone actually wants to do that, I'd be all for it. But actually treat this game like it came out and not some big, not even related vision you think it was. I did enjoy the gameplay, and yeah, it's simple, and I don't think it's perfect. I gave my problems. But I don't think it needs to go all out in some over-the-top way. I think it did a lot, and hell, even got more creative and unique than a lot of standard survival horror, just running away from the monsters continually. They always have new things in each chapter, also bringing in fresh new ideas, and some I really wish got expanded more often. You can feel the evolution of the game becoming bigger and more ambitious as it went along. It's a palpable type of growth, and I think it's filled with its heart and charm from it. It might not be that scary. Well, to me it is sometimes, like really. But I like that it's really more focused on setting up a really good atmosphere, story, and aesthetic that sticks to most survival horror tropes. It's the only time I've actually gotten into a horror game. And yeah, I do like the story, the interesting characters, and the slow reveals through the audio logs, and the building stays going deeper through the studio hell, as the lore and history get unraveled to you, and the message at the end was perfect, reframes so much of it with a lesson that's very poignant, and still very relevant, as much of it still happens in the animation industry today. I kind of owe this game a lot. It's the one horror game I got into, my experience with the Mascot Horror boom of my past, and it was an inspiration to me in my early days in art, and a good chunk of my older work was for Bendy. It means a lot to me. It's completely unfair to treat this game as when Mascot Horror became a problem, because that's a revisionist history. Again, it's like the second big Mascot Horror game, as if it was all downhill from there. Like yeah, FNAF never made a bad game, there's no problems there, totally did not get melted to death, didn't contribute to the problem at all. Instead of blaming it for the problems of Mascot Horror now, it should be seen as one of the examples when it felt new, fun, and unique, giving a new taste of the horror genre. And I'm happy to see the series still continuing. I haven't gotten around to Dark Revival yet. Look, I said I'm not good with horror. But it looks great and again, elevates the series more. Like I said, getting more advanced and ambitious and touching more on horror themes. Maybe I'll finally cover it next Halloween. Also, other smaller spin-offs like Boris and the Dark Survival, a top-down dungeon crawler like game about Boris scavenging the studio before he met Henry, and Nightmare Run, a mobile game made before the first game finished that I actually really like and was a great and innovative take on the endless runner genre, and I really wish it got a content update. And just now, the cage is apparently going to be extra experimental, focused a lot more on the horror experience. Kind of funny, it feels like how the rest of the Mascot Horror genre is trying to be more marketable and kiddie, that Bendy is actually becoming more experimental and horror focused. And after the FNAF movie, it's getting its own, and I'm for it. I think out of every Mascot Horror game, that Bendy worked the best as a movie, with its characters, engaging interesting atmosphere and aesthetics, and it's pretty cinematic already in a lot of ways, and I'm excited for it. I love this game, and it means a lot to me, and I do hope this at least convince people that it's a lot better than it's given credit for. It should be respected at least somewhat, and not blamed for problems it didn't cause. A passion project experimenting with an idea became one of the next big things, and I love that. So, just remember a few things. Be kind to people, don't get blinded by ambition in the past, respect artists and animation, and people put their souls into their work. And most of all, beware the machine.
Hold it right there, Doodle. I brought you into this world, and now I'm gonna take you out. I am SpongeBob, destroyer of evil!
Take it easy, it's just a drawing.